Boilers take care of business, taking down the Northwestern Wildcats. A little easier than the last time. We're going to be talking about it all as the Boilers move on in the Big Ten tournament. Nebraska on deck tomorrow, but a lot to cover here tonight at the United Center here on Boilers in the Stands postgame show starting right now. And we are back here on Boilers in the Stands postgame show. I am your host, Greg Braggs Jr. Alongside me, as always, is Joe Jackson and Craig Bowers. We all three are live from the United Center after the Purdue Boilermakers win handedly here over the Northwestern Wildcats. Not as interesting as the last time. Purdue went up 24 early on, but if you were listening to some of the players in the locker room, I think one of the biggest points of emphasis, and you guys can tell me what you heard from Matt Painter at the press conference, but still some lingering frustrations about not being able to close the door in the second half. So this is a team certainly not resting on their laurels, while there was a lot of positives to take from tonight, and certainly Braden Smith moving into second all-time in assists in college basketball history and the most assists in a Big Ten tournament game ever. Certainly notable. And this team was playing like a well-oiled machine in the first half, and that certainly was a breath of fresh air and a sight for sore eyes for what we've been seeing from Purdue over the last month and a half to 2 months. And so I'll just start by saying that, yeah, I personally, these guys probably weren't, but I was nervous going into this game here tonight. Northwestern's been playing pretty good basketball over the last few weeks. They gave Purdue everything they could handle at Welsh Ryan Arena. West did not even play for Northwestern the last time around. And so I'm looking at this saying, hey, Northwestern's won a couple games. They have the momentum. I understand fatigue was going to be a factor, but to me it was going to all come down to those first 10 minutes of the game. And boy, was I wrong in every facet of that mindset, because Purdue was the one that really took it to them in those first 10 minutes and set the tone for what was mostly a game they could coast through by the time you got to the second half. And that is a testament to the game plan, number one. I mean, we really talk about the scheme so much this year. We've talked about the scheme specifically on the defensive end. But offensively, you got to give Purdue a lot of credit for the scheme they came up with, because you saw a lot in that first game, how they were able to trap Braden Smith high, towards that, and Joe can explain this better than me, towards that half court line. But today they said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to play a two-man game with our bigs. We know you're down a big, and we're going to play a two-man game with Oscar Clough and Trey Kaufman-Renn and see if you can handle it. And they could not. And that was a great game plan. If you were watching this team pregame, you saw them working on that, where, hey, we're going to do a short roll with TKR. We're going to wait to get space, and then we're going to dump it down one more time to Oscar Clough and get easy layups. And they were able to execute that when the game got underway. So a lot of credit to the game plan, because it took Northwestern a while to even try to come up with any kind of semblance of a counter off that action. So shout out to Purdue for a tremendous game plan. And now we look ahead to see if they can get a few more wins here in the Big Ten tournament. And I know you guys have talked about it a lot, but most Big Ten tournaments, we don't really you're trying to win a game maybe and then lose and get your rest for next week. That's not this year. This team needs to get some wins and find some momentum, and tonight was a step in that direction.
My bad, muted. Also apologize in advance for quieter talking. We're in press room and Nick or Coach Collins is talking, so trying not to be too disruptive. If this sounds like ASMR, that's on me and probably Craig as well. So, but yeah, I mean, this is a game you obviously wish Purdue maybe closed a bit better. This second half specifically doesn't concern me as much as maybe some of the others. Like Northwestern got loose in transition a bit. Northwestern got crazy hot from three. Like, given Purdue's track record, that's probably the little bit more worrisome of why, like this is something that Purdue can do. But I mean, Purdue just from the jump, they came out and they dominated. They won. If you're to divide the game into quarters, they won the first quarter 23-11. They won the second quarter 22-10. They were up, 24 at half in a game where they dominated on the interior from the jump. I think we'll talk about it with the stats and all that. Purdue gets 50% of their own misses, 50% of the offensive rebounded chances, and with just 16 total. just kind of dominated everywhere. Brainsmith facilitating to everything that he needed. We'll talk through it a little bit, but I thought he did a very good job of one just dragging out the big in a more controlled manner this time, I would say, than maybe the last Northwestern game. Everybody just kind of felt a little bit more under control. And then also the bigs, like the bigs just absolutely dominated. You get Clough and TKR to combine for 38 points on 15 and 19 shooting. They also Clough adds in 10 rebounds, including 6 offensive. TKR adds in 6. Game you don't shoot crazy hot from three, although 4 of the 8 threes came from the bench. Like just a good game overall. And then defense, and we'll talk about this definitely a lot more in a little bit. Purdue switched things up, and I think Northwestern, like, having good defensive success, really good defensive success in the first half against Northwestern doesn't mean that everything's fixed. But instead of just pure high hedge, they also mixed in some drop coverage. And if you listen to some previous shows, I've talked about that, like getting those bigs to drop back closer to the rim against pick and rolls instead of being really far out. I think it sets up better for this defense to have those capabilities to protect the rim, to force more mid range shots. I think in this one, right, like the average 2 point attempt distance for Northwestern in this game was 10 feet. Like that's really far. On this in this game too, as I'm stalling to pull up the stats, Northwestern takes quick math, 31 mid-range shots by my quick math. Some of that is Northwestern's tendencies. Some of that I think is Purdue's defense and kind of what they mixed in. So they still high hedged at times. They also switched at certain actions. So, and like I said, I think the second half was a lot more of like just honestly Northwestern getting out in transition. They had 13 fast break points in the second half, none in the first. Northwestern gets crazy hot in the second half, and some of that is definitely some Purdue defensive lapses. Don't get me wrong, but not as worrisome. Now you get another tough test tomorrow. Well, yeah, with Nebraska and their shooting and their capabilities. So maybe we'll talk about that briefly at the end. But that's what I got for my immediate reaction. And hopefully my voice was fine.
Your voice was very good, Joe. Here on NPR today. But no, I'm from the jump. And their quick takeaway here, and just kind of said, like, it's the paint. Like, Purdue just absolutely dominated the paint, both from a rebounding standpoint and scoring in the paint. 38 paint points today. If we look at rebounding relative to the two teams here, dominate there both in offensive rebounds and in defensive rebounding. Plus 12 overall in rebounding, right? Plus 9 in offensive rebound, plus 8 in second chance points. And there's certain teams that this Purdue team should just absolutely dominate in those areas, and Northwestern is one of those teams. Nebraska is one that we had that same kind of advantage when we won that game out at Nebraska, but they haven't always done it, right? There's been some games where Joe and I previewed, and it's like Purdue has a decided advantage down low. And then the game ends, and it's like, okay, what happened? Like, how were we only plus 1, plus 2 in rebounds? How were paints and points in the paint as close as they were? So they still got to go out and do it. And in this one, it was a concerted effort right away, starting with Oscar Clough, and then later TKR. There were a lot of big passing, like Greg mentioned, and relative to Braden in terms of how he handled this defense. Just in interviewing the players in the locker room, the first thing Fletch said, and something CJ said really quick, was like when they were watching the Northwestern film, that Braden needed to make quicker decisions and get the ball out of his hand faster. And Fletcher brought that up when he was asked the question about how they were able to handle it much better. Is that Braden was not holding the ball near as long. He was making quick decisions. He was getting it out. And even though he had, what did he finish with, 16 assists? Is that where he's at in this one? So even though he had 16 assists, right, there were still a lot of times where he makes the right pass, which leads to another pass, or leads to Trey taking 3 or 4 dribbles and getting all the way to the rim quickly and scoring. That was really, really vital. And then when they're more worried about that, that kind of opens up. They get a little more nervous about how high they're coming up on that hedge and everything else. And then to your point, Joe, in interviewing CJ after the game, he did say they switched up defensively in terms of what they were doing. They didn't, and what Purdue uses is the term red for like that super high aggressive hedge, that they didn't do that near as much in this game, and switched 4 and 5 with Martinelli and 1 through 4 with everybody else. So Obviously, to your point, played a little bit more drop or even hedge at level when they did hedge some more. He did say that was matchup dependent. When I asked him that, so don't take that away as like, oh, Purdue is completely switched and this is what they're going to do every single game from here on out, and it's a schematic change or revolution in Purdue's defense. It could strictly just be that they thought that was the best thing for this specific matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think the other aspect of this too, that really when we talk about the bigs setting the tone, they certainly did. Braden Smith, when you talk about getting the ball out of his hands fast, I think the biggest, I mean, if we're skipping all the way to the end of the show, because we can't go any further not talking about the play of this game. And that was Braden Smith tipping the ball to himself as he's falling out of bounds. He tips it up in the air. It's almost going to like turn into a jump ball. He's falling out of bounds. He's diving out of bounds. And forgive me as the Chicago Bulls fan resident here of this program, but reminiscent of Dennis Rodman diving into the stands for a loose ball. And here's Braden Smith, after tipping it, flying into the air to save the ball out of bounds, slaps it forward. And there's Omer Meyer hustling to the basketball, beating out the Northwestern Wildcat, getting ahead, getting in transition, getting a layup. That when you talk about, moments of this season, that might have been at the top. And I also think about, what this team has been through here lately. And so, for Braden, who has been diving on the floor all season long, but in that moment, they were really handling Purdue. Jakari Harris is knocking down threes. You got, they were just taking it to Northwestern. So he didn't necessarily have to do that in that moment. It wasn't like the game was in the balance, but just the effort he showed was just remarkable. And just when you talk about what Braden Smith brings to this team and this program, the Big Ten, he put it on full display in that moment. So it was a banner night for Braden Smith in that regard. 16 assists, like we were saying earlier, most assists ever in a Big Ten tournament game. So, obviously everybody's looking at the assist record, which some fans get frustrated with more than others, but he's closed that gap. He's now number 2 all time. So all the credit to him here. They've got bigger fish to fry in terms of goals, but at the same time, watching Braden Smith really put on a show here. He had 16. He easily could have had 20 plus. Oscar missed a couple bunnies. A couple guys missed a few threes that he set him up beautifully on. And then, as Craig mentioned, some of the hockey assists as well. So I just didn't want to go any further in this program without mentioning that play, because to me, that just really stood out in such a big way of kind of what encapsulated what tonight was all about for Purdue. And I think everybody's just kind of hoping that they can finish this season on a positive note. And so for me, that was a step in the right direction. And I understand the second half, was frustrating, for a lot of fans. You want to see them step on their throat, have that killer mentality. But I do appreciate the players in the locker room not glossing over that. That was TKR's main focus. Every time somebody tried to set him up for a question, we'll have I got about 5 minutes with him in the locker room. We'll have that uploaded onto YouTube here later. But every time he was set up about what a great night they had, he was like, yeah, we did for one half. So, that's the kind of mentality that they need to have here going forward. But it was good to see here for one night here, moving on, see what they can do tomorrow night against Nebraska.
Yeah, and it's a new season. At the end of the day, it's a brand new season, and obviously another season will start in just a week from today, probably. So, right through all the ups and downs of what this regular season was, Purdue being able to come out and really, I understand the second half wasn't awesome, but like pretty much assert their dominance right away. And again, it's Northwestern; they're the 15th seed. Like they're without Aronson Page, all that, but just visually feeling emotion, whatever you want to call it, like they just looked more in sync than I've seen, I feel like, recently. And that's just something you can kind of take going forward. And I think also I'm just going to jump right into the rotation from here, because there was a little bit of, I would say, different rotation today. You see Clough extend his initial Clough and CJ kind of get a little bit longer stint early on. TKR, he's actually the first sub out where Benter subs in. Then you still bring in Jacobson after a couple minutes. You still bring in Jakari and Meyer, and they actually get pretty long runs in the first half because they were both able to knock down some shots. And in the second half, they pretty much ride Clough for 17 of the 20 minutes. They ride the starters a lot, right? Braden sits for 2 minutes, CJ sits for 3, Lawyer for 5, TKR for 5, and Clough for 3. So I think we're starting to see too, like, especially in games where the starters have it going. Purdue being more and more willing to kind of just ride with them down the stretch, just kind of just lean on the starters more, while also recognizing, like, hey, if Jakari, if Meyer, if Benner start really getting going, they can still play longer stints. And that for all the frustration I think there was from fans at times of, like, why aren't these guys playing longer in that? And, like, I'm not saying it's unfair criticism or frustration or whatever, but, like, by saving them a little bit earlier, right, it makes it a tiny bit easier to let them, play 30 minutes or whatever in these later games, just because the legs probably aren't quite as dead as what they could be. Again, still think it's fair. People think it, fair criticism, whatever. But I don't know if you guys have anything on the rotation, but just kind of want to transition to that because there was some differences today.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure in the Wisconsin game also that Benner was subbed in before Jacobson. So I 2 games isn't a trend, but we've seen it twice in a row. And I turned to you right away and I was like, he's trying to mitigate the Jack Benner, Daniel Jacobson minutes, because he needs to play both of them at some point just to manage everybody else's time that's out there. But I think, if you go and you look at lineups in terms of plus minus for the team, the pairing of Benner and Jacobson hasn't been very good lately. So it felt funny in the Wisconsin game. We're like, why is Trey coming out first? And then you see it again in this game and you're like, oh, okay. He's trying to make sure that Trey or Clough is out there as much as possible, and he doesn't have that DJ Benner combo out there. I think it was only there together for maybe a minute today, maybe not even that long. And he was able to just, I like it. I like it a lot. I like that he kind of just flipped up that rotation to make sure one of those 2 primary post guys from, like, scoring, rebounding standpoint is out there on the court basically all the time now.
We got a super chat here dropped in from Salty B, $16 super chat. You don't see that too much, but it's in honor of 16 assists for Braden here. $16 for 16 assists by Braden. Great to see the Boilers bring tournament level defense. Did they flip the switch? I sure hope so. We do as well. Tomorrow will be a big test for them. Salty B obviously had a substantial lead against Nebraska last time around, but let that lead dwindle. And maybe that's, maybe today, if you're going to spin zone it, you're going to put the fan hat on and give it that spin zone. Maybe the second half, letting them creep back in. Braden Smith comes out at the 9-minute mark, and all of a sudden it's a 14-point game. Painter's got to call, I think, his second time out on that run. And now all of a sudden you got yourself a little bit of a ball game more than you thought you were. Well, there's a teaching point there because you let the same thing happen against Nebraska, right? You're up 20 on them, and then all of a sudden you're in overtime trying to save your lives. So that was my only takeaway in terms of the rotations. I'm watching at the end of the game. They take out Braden, and all of a sudden everything starts going to hell. I'm like, all right, I know he needs rest, but get him out there. He was hunting for 20 assists anyway, so why don't we keep him out there anyway? But I get it. So that was it for me. I think the Jack Benner, I'll save my thoughts on Jack Benner here because I saw some people talking about it, and I know you guys just were as well, but I have more specific thoughts on his play. I know how much of a key he is. I just hope he can I know what he's capable of. I'm excited for his 4 years here at Purdue, but it has been like, dang, man, it just feels like there's still so much untapped potential that he can find here this season. He took a charge in the first half, as I say. I'm not going to, and then I get right into it. But he took a charge. He almost had a second one, so he does that almost every game. But I still think there's still so much more to pull out of Jack Benner, even in this year, as opposed to even just looking ahead for the next 3 years. So I don't know where you guys – go
and
ahead.
Real quick, while we're on that, Brad did say something about, I think Benner has a hurt shooting wrist, and when we were in the locker room, he did have a pack around that wrist, and it was hooked up. It was plugged into something. I don't know if that was a tube that was rotating cold water through or what exactly, but he definitely was getting treatment on it. In the Wisconsin game, 2 different times he went down, and when he came up, was really favoring that wrist. So wouldn't it surprise me at all. I haven't heard them officially say anything. I didn't get a chance to talk to him in the locker room, but no, that wouldn't surprise me at all, Brad, if that was the case.
Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I know some of you are watching on Facebook, other than you might be watching on Twitter. Obviously, here on YouTube, if you subscribe and hit the like button to this channel, that's the easiest way you can go about showing support to the program. Met some fans in the stands here today that some new fans that I think are watching on the way home. So welcome all. Appreciate you. We do live post-game shows after every game. These two fine gentlemen do preview shows for every game. It'd be interesting to see how they're going to pull off all those this week. You are not committed to anything.
We
See,
just
this
plug it
this
really
is how
quick.
we know that. Yeah, this is how we know that Greg doesn't watch the shows when he's not on the show, Joe.
Yeah, we did do a preview show where we did talk through kind of every potential Big Ten opponent, at least until the championship. So there'll be a little bit of talk on Nebraska, a little bit of talk on Michigan State if they get there, etc.
Well, that's what I was doing. I was just acting as if the viewer that hasn't seen that preview show. So if you haven't seen that preview show and you want to know what to expect against Nebraska or Michigan State or Forward, these guys already broke it down. And no, I didn't know that occurred. But even if I had watched, as Craig learned on our drive up, very rarely, even when you think I'm listening, I'm not listening. So that's a big problem with me. But I love you guys very much. You guys work very hard. And now we get another day here at the United Center, which is always, for me, a real pleasure to walk in here. The house that Jordan built, home of Dennis Rodman. I talked a little bit to TKR about, he brought up, trying to model his game after Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman, won 3 rings in this building. And he gave some good thoughts, not just about the player that Dennis was, but, having to go against some of the noise that Dennis Rodman had to fight against. He talked a little bit about that as well, and trying to, model his game in some ways after him. And so that was cool for me as somebody that grew up on those amazing players here. So to have that perspective was, TKR always brings a good perspective. So, but this is about the Purdue Boilermakers and what they can do here in March. So, so let's move things on. Yes, Brad Widmer. He says, even if you think I'm listening to you, I'm not. And these guys, I don't feel bad for. You got to feel bad for my wife, who I've been with for 22 years. She's had to put up with it a lot longer than any of you have. So you can just deal with it for 1 hour on each of these postgame shows. So let's get into the team stats of the game. I don't know. Is that where you guys want to take it? I'm assuming you do. So let's move this thing along here. Northwestern shoots 53% from the field. Correct me if I'm wrong, Joe. Is that 7, 8 straight games that the opponent has shot over 50% from the field?
I forget the exact number off the top of my head, to be honest. Something like that.
Well, and so, Northwestern certainly had an impressive second half to make sure that was the case. But Purdue shoots 49% from the field on 61 shots. Took 23 threes for Purdue, 8 of 23 from three-point land, 13 of 17 from the line. Only 7 turnovers. They've been good about keeping those down all year. They had Northwestern turn the ball over 9 times and got 11 points off of those turnovers. But there it is, the rebounding battle won by Purdue, dominant, 35-23 in Purdue's favor. 19 defensive, 16 offensive rebounds, only 7 offensive rebounds for Northwestern. There's a big chunk of your game right there. Second chance points, a big one here as Purdue gets 17 of them. Points in the paint, 38 for Purdue. And 25 assists on 30 made baskets for Purdue as they lead for the entirety of this game. Never trailed once. Impressive display from Purdue. Pretty much did it all. And as we said before, just dominating in the paint on both ends of the court.
Yeah, and I think that's where That's the first thing that jumps. What was it 38 paint points? I believe in this one is what you just said, because I also wasn't fully listening to you right there. Um, just kidding. I was 3/4 listening. Yeah, 38 points in the paint for Purdue there. If we do the math, they made 22 twos. So if we do 22 times 2, that's 44, which means only 6 of their points via 2-pointers came outside of the paints. Basically, to put it in probably nicer words, they just got downhill a lot and they got into the paint a lot, right? Wasn't a game where they just dominated completely in the mid range. Now, TK has some short rolls and things like that still, but Fletcher has like a pull up too that I think was right around there. But they dominate the paint, they dominate the glass, and that's how you can overcome, you know, a night where maybe you don't shoot super great from three. It wasn't a terrible shooting night. That's how you get out to a big lead early, is just dominate the paint on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think that jumps out immediately. I thought you were going to go longer. I was trying to look something up still, but I one of the things that I've lamented a lot this season was our inability to get to the free throw line, and just the fact that there was so much emphasis to get to the rim, right? Not just get to a mid range game, but get all the way to the rim, get to that 2 or 3 footer. Purdue goes to the line 17 times, and in terms of who was taking those, guards only took 2 free throws this entire game. So it was the bigs, right? And I'm glad to see that emphasis. I think we'll probably see some of that, going forward. I know Nebraska is going to try to kind of force you to take a bunch of threes, so maybe not as much in that one. But Purdue should still be able to dominate from an offensive rebounding standpoint, get second chance opportunities, and maybe get to the foul line a little bit as well. Other than that, like it's nice to see a game where Purdue gets 19 bench points in this one. We've had some games during this recent, tough stretch where the bench hasn't generated much production from a scoring standpoint. So, you saw Meyer come in and get some buckets. You saw Jakari get some buckets. Jacobson had a couple real nice ones. He had a couple that he smoked too. Like it's kind of night and day. You're like, oh wow, like that's a really sweet move, nice touch, and then smokes the next one. But they all got there, right, and they all got going. So good to see that as well. I think you guys pretty much covered everything else. But obviously just an amazing job offensive rebounding, right? So 16 of those, they only missed 31 shots. So they offensive rebound more than half of their missed shots in this one. So really impressive performance in the paint and on the glass, both.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, I'll let you kind of steer some things. I'm doing some behind the scenes production, see if I can add a little bit of flavor to the back end of this show. We'll see. So you guys kind of take the ball and run with it, and I'll try to follow your lead.
All right, let's jump into the players then. As we kind of keep things rolling here, right? Probably try to keep this a tiny bit of a shorter show, and we say that and always go like an hour and 15. But there's another game going on right now, and then also travel, and we'll be right back here tomorrow once again in United Center.
My
no
mom
complaints
is
from us
also
on that.
my mom is also sitting in the stands waiting for us to at some point, but she's fine. There's a second game going on.
So there we go. So let's get through. Let's head into some of the players. Then I think we start with Braden Smith, 5 points on 2 of 8 shooting, 1 of 4 from 3. Slightly concerning. It's felt like he's missed. I mean, I'm gonna look up. Yeah, hasn't shot great from 3 over the last few weeks. I still trust him, but has been a little bit of a downward trend there. But regardless, nobody really cares about that right now because he has 2 rebounds. I mean, big stat line, just getting 16 assists in this one and only 1 turnover. Did have a block and 2 steals as well. I mean, what is there to say about Braden, right? Like, and just his ability to facilitate, his ability to know where the defense is, his ability to move the defense. And I guess we can get a little bit into like in what we talked about with like Braden did a good job of getting the ball out of his hands where he might, something Purdue has been doing a bit more, I think, as of late is like high ball screen where basically they're just using it as a decoy. Whereas that's happening, Braden's just kind of passing ahead so then he can sprint, get a handoff, curl, and just kind of keep the defense moving and allow him to kind of operate in some different space, different areas that way. So there was that. I mean, I think there's multiple times where he just does a good job of drawing that big out where once he knows it's 2 on the ball, which it was from Northwestern every time, he just wants to drag that big out as far as possible. because as he does that, that's what's creating gaps. That's what's creating skip passes and things like that. And I mean, he was just able to do it consistently all night. And then on top of that, um, we see Purdue and Braden be able to get downhill too, right? He mixed some of that in where you see him get down into the paint, drop off the club, drop off the TKR. There were some short rolls in there when the high tag wasn't there. When the high tag was there, then Braden's just going to skip it to the corner. Like when there's a high tag and Braden Braden already had skipped it to the corner in a previous possession. So then the next one he comes down, there's the high tag on TKR, and he jumps and he just looks off the defender and rifles it to Clough underneath. Like it felt like there was an ultimate trust from Braden today. I think with Clough, like a couple of them were just kind of like, oh, I didn't expect him to throw that to Clough, and he did, and Clough was obviously able to convert. So I mean, yeah, that's my little rant on Braden, and kind of I think some of the slight adjustments he had today of just being able to withstand the pressure from Northwestern and get the guys the looks that they needed.
Yeah, and I just thought his reads were really decisive and quick, and like we've already kind of highlighted a couple times, just get the ball out, let that ball start moving. Even though he got 16 assists, other people were able to score in other ways because that spacing is there. Then once he gets it out, whenever they put 2 on the ball, and you even saw it a couple of times when the ball was in somebody else's hand and they put 2 on the ball as well. So I kind of wrote, in my notes, like he was in his facilitation bag today. Scoring wasn't necessarily there. The shot making wasn't necessarily there. And even more than facilitation, and this is the first game. He's had some big assist game, but this is the first game in a while where I've just been like, he is in absolute complete control, and he is just like dictating Purdue's offense regardless of the defense. He's using what they're trying to do defensively to Purdue's advantage and kind of baiting them to something to get Purdue whatever shot they wanted. So I thought it was a fantastic game. I think it's one of the better games that we've seen Braden play this entire year, to be honest.
And not to put you on the spot here, Joe, but obviously it just excuse me, it stood out so much in the Northwestern game how they were able to trap him high. And it just created so many problems for Purdue. Is there anything, I don't know if you have your board on you or if it even is board worthy, excuse me, just because I don't think we should take for granted the adjustment they made in that regard. So whether you have the board or not, just to basically try to flat out explain why Northwestern wasn't even able to get to in the second half. It felt like they did it a few times, but it was non-existent in the first half. So is it just as simple as Purdue getting into their action faster? Like, because it just stood out to me. It was like, wow, what plagued them in their first matchup, it wasn't even a factor for the majority of this game.
Yeah, I think it's a mix of things. So I think there's some of that quicker action that we talked about where it's like he skips ahead, gets the handoff, is able to kind of turn. I think even in just some normal pick and roll, there was a lot of times where he was very much more decisive today, and like he split a couple of the double teams, right, to get downhill that way. He turned the corner, and so right when a defense like in that first game, they were just kind of able to consistently know that they were just going to push him out. Once Braden like splits a couple or has these counters come in where he quickly gets off the ball and then maybe gets back onto it, like defenses now have to be prepared for that. It's not as simple as, oh, I'm just going to step out here and push him back. It's okay, well, I can't let him split this hedge because that's like the worst thing that could happen for us defensively. Well, okay, well, that means now Braden's going to get this corner, be able to turn the corner and get downhill a little bit. There's also some, I think, just of like, it felt like Braden was the one like last game, Braden was the one initiating. Last game, I felt like Braden was trying to react more to the defense. And this one, even though obviously the defense is dictating that they're putting 2 on the ball, he was still the one kind of just being like, we're going to still move at my pace. Sometimes it's going to be fast. Sometimes it's going to be a bit slower, and I'm going to really drag you out. And, I think him being I know he's 6 foot, but like the 6'5" or whatever, 6'6" wingspan, like that's what allows him to get to those jump passes. And I know it's not been a thing probably the last 2 years, but early in his career, there's a lot of fans that hated the jump passes. And I know it was something I kept harping on, is just like, no, he needs to kind of keep working through those because he's 6 foot and he's got to be able to fight among the trees, especially in Big Ten play. And we've seen that more this year, like in this game where, right, at 6 foot with a long wingspan, now when he jumps, he just can get those passes off quicker. So I think it was just kind of a mix of all those things. And also like, right, hitting TKR a bit quicker in the short roll or kicking the ball even ahead, even if he doesn't go get it back. There was just some quicker decisions. I just thought Braden did such a better job of just mixing things up, right? Like you can talk about always like sometimes you want to mix things up defensively because like for a guy like Braden, if you give him the same look every time, he's eventually going to pick it apart. And I think he just eventually was able to get to that today, and that's something I called out in the preview too of like playing Northwestern this closely to the previous one. I think is something that could help them. Just like Braden had already been familiar with those reads.
Well, and I think another big thing too, and this is something I identified early in the year, they were not getting it into the bigs fast enough, whether it was because the guards didn't have enough confidence to throw it in or the bigs weren't sealing with enough authority and showing enough confidence to the guards like, hey, you can get this into me. And I thought tonight, right out the jump, Oscar Clough and TKR were getting deep underneath the hoop and sealing, like, and having all sorts of space, just begging for you, like on a silver platter, just get it into me and I'm going to get it up off the backboard and put it in for you. And so that when you talk about the 16 assists and all the success they had in the first half, wasn't just Braden, it was the work those big guys were doing down low.
Yeah, and maybe I can just kind of jump into that with the stats, and then I'll throw, Craig, you can jump in if you have brain thoughts or the big thoughts, because they do, like you said, Braggs, they kind of all work together in this one. TKR has 19 points on 8 of 9 shooting, 4 offensive rebounds, 2 defensive rebounds, 2 assists, and no turnovers in this one. Clough, 19 points on 7 of 10 shooting, 5 of 5 from the free throw line, 10 rebounds, 6 of them being offensive, 2 assists, did have 2 turnovers, a block, and a steal. I think that's a very good call out, Braggs, of like, it does all kind of work together, right? Braden's able to make the reads that he does because he knows who he's able to pass it to and he trusts them. And I mean, from the jump, like right away, I think Clough, it felt like Clough probably had seven or 8 pretty early points.
Yeah.
I would have to go back to see exactly the timeline,
Yep.
but yeah, they kind of jumped on it early.
Yep. I don't know where you guys.
Yeah, they did. And we're going to me, Greg. That's where we're going. But when you look at the 2 bigs in this game and just like total your lineup from your starting 4 and 5 spot, 38 points, right? 15 of 19 from the field, 8 of 11 from the free throw line, 10 offensive rebounds, 16 rebounds overall, 4 assists on only 2 turnovers, and there's a block, and I think at least 1 steal in there as well. And I thought Trey had active hands in this one, but I especially thought that Clough had some really active. How did Trey not get credited with that steal? I thought he stole one up at the top of the key and like took off the other way with it. But nonetheless, I thought they were just incredible. Painters talked, and I think when you go back and look at the games that Purdue really controls, it always starts with our bigs setting the tone, right? And even if it's not necessarily leading to a scoring output like we saw tonight, just setting that tone that we are going to be the more physical team. We're going to dominate the glass. And they did that right from the jump. And there was a great play in this one. It was a sideline out of bound, or what we would call a slop, Greg, where Trey just seals real deep. It's what they tried to do in at the end of the Michigan State game. The first look was this same attempt, right? And he just seals his guy so deep, and just a bullet from the sideline from, I think, Fletcher for an easy 2 points. But yeah, that's a good point you bring up, just in terms of the depth of position that they were getting there, Greg. But just an incredible night from your 2 bigs. And, you hope from at least a rebounding standpoint that they can turn around and replicate that again tomorrow night.
Well, if I may, this is a little bit of a different way that we do things around here, but I was able to bring some of the video from the locker room. Would you guys like to hear from Trey Kaufman-Renn after the win? All right. Well, here is Trey Kaufman-Renn here talking after the big win here at the United Center as Purdue moves on here in the Big Ten tournament to take on Nebraska tomorrow. He talks about a lot of different things, from mentality to scheme to looking forward, and even, Braden Smith's night as well. So here is Trey Kaufman-Renn from the locker room.
To establish what you guys are capable of doing. To establish what you guys are capable of doing from the get-go and kind of stay on the gas for the full 40.
I don't think we stayed on the gas for the full 40, unfortunately. I thought we started off really well, but then
You were obviously here last year.
Fell back into old habits, and obviously when you're not hitting shots and they're getting transition, I felt like that's where it started. But we just can't let people get going. I thought we did such a tremendous job the first half. It's just I wish we get a full 40.
It was important knowing they played 3 games in 3 days to come out and have that kind of a start against them, to not give them momentum to stay in it.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think so.
I just don't know how. There's been a couple teams that's done it, but I don't know how a team like that is able to to end up winning it all. That's just so difficult to play 3 games in 3 days. So shout out to them, true Warriors, man.
How important was it to set a tone for the postseason for the team? Just talk about the offensive.
Like I said, it's the first half I thought we did a really good job. Then again, we fell back into some old habits, but hopefully we can take some momentum. Knowing that when we're connected, we can be really good.
It felt like you guys had a deliberate plan with the 2-man game between you and Clough. Really had that going in the first half. What was the mindset of trying to come up with that from the last time you guys played them?
What is a win?
We just knew we were, they were a little bit undersized with, Page being out, and then, being able to get my short roll with Braden when they stick the bigger guy on me. That's just, that's our most advantageous play, and so just, PJ did a good job of continuing to run it, trying to play simple.
Braden tied his career high with assists tonight at 16. What was able to see the floor so well tonight? What made it different than any other game?
Just the coverage. He did a good job of reading the scouting report and knowing how they're going to guard him. When they put 2 on the ball and give him so much attention, then he's able to make good passes at that.
How much easier is it for you guys to play when he's playing like that and delivering the ball like that?
I think it starts with him, attacking first, being a scoring threat first. And so once he can score the ball, then him being open to hit the guys on for good looks. I think that's what really starts.
How much does defense creating offense play into the best version of this team?
It's huge. It's huge. We're such good offensive players, in my opinion, that whenever we can get stops and we can get transition points, you're not playing the half court the whole time. It makes the game so much easier. When we score and when we defend, obviously, but when we defend really well, we're a really hard team to stop.
What kind of a just burst do you get out of a play like that one that Braden made, knocking the ball loose, throwing it down the court, literally turning defense into offense with one possession?
Yeah. He plays hard, and so when you have a leader like that who's able to, throw his body and save a ball like that, it just really energizes the team.
They change anything about the way they were guarding you guys? You made all those threes and everything.
Oh yeah. They changed a couple times their short roll coverage. They really started out blitzing, and then it was kind of what they did at home, hit some corner threes, and then they were trying to play drop coverage for a little bit, but we still got it, and then they ended up switching later in the game, and so we have counters for everything. I thought we did a good job of that last year. That was basically our offense, so I thought we did a good job adjusting, on the fly to what they were doing.
Did you expect to see a completely different game plan from them coming in since you played so recently?
Yeah, probably. Even though it was a close game, at the end of the game we started getting really good looks. And so whenever you're getting really good looks by good shooters, they have to switch something up, or you're going to have what happened in the first half.
You were just sort of lamenting having a big lead, letting it get away somewhat. That was obviously what happened when the first time they played Nebraska too. Just what are you expecting out of this rematch?
Except when play hard. I thought we did a great job, rebounding, being physical. We had a lot of energy going into that game, and so again, another really good team, really good coach. So they're going to be ready for us.
Floater, a little more of a weapon last year. Haven't had as many chances this year. Did you get into a rhythm with it today? Did you know it was coming? Like you had that space?
Yeah, it's. They've been, Michigan State did it, obviously they did it, Ohio State did it, they've been sticking their 5 on me, and so, then we go to ball screen coverages and it's almost like last year, so, whenever we can do that and I can get the ball right there, I just had a higher dosage last year, but like you said, I just got in a rhythm early, and then once that shot goes, it's really hard to stop.
Is it kind of like a jumper? You see the first one in, then you feel good?
No doubt, yeah, no doubt. Once one goes in, it feels like anything I throw up to again.
And there is Trey Kaufman-Renn from the United Center. Anything stand out to you there, Craig?
I mean, I think obviously, just as you kind of pointed out, that even though this felt like a super easy win, they weren't satisfied with the way the last 20 minutes went, right? And I think it is interesting also, just hearing him talk about having more opportunities with that floater. It wasn't something that I'd really thought of. It's felt like he hasn't got it going as much this year at different times, but just in terms of it being more of the way other teams were trying to take it away from him, that he's not getting the volume of those. And I think that is a shot that usually has to develop rhythm. A lot of times you'll see him miss his first or second one of those to start a game, and then he'll kind of get in a rhythm with it. And if defenses are just kind of designing to completely eliminate that or try to take it away from him, then that, I guess, kind of makes more sense why he hasn't got going with it quite as well and quite as in a rhythm this particular year. But obviously these guys have all been through this multiple times now. This is their fourth year going through it. They've had some short tournaments, they've had some long tournaments. They know what to expect, and they know the mindset that they have to have in this one. So, it just sounded like, I mean, not only his, but all of them in that locker room, even, like Meyer, who is playing in for his first time, that they all have got a very, businessman-like approach to, attacking this tournament. And I'm sure going to be the same way when they get to the NCAA tournament.
No question. Yeah, definitely you can hear it a little bit of, this is a lot of what we did last year, and it's like, so you hear a little bit of that borderline frustration, like, hey, we need to do this more, and so it'll be interesting. It's all matchup dependent, right? I think that's something you guys teach me daily. Like you'll hear a fan in the stand say, why don't they do that all the time? Well, it's about who they're playing. It's a matchup dependent league. And as TKR said earlier in the show, earlier in the interview, when I asked him about the 2-man game between him and Clough, which I just thought they did such a phenomenal job of it. He was like, well, yeah, they were missing a big, so we're going to do that. So you're not going to have that luxury every game. I'm
glad you got back, Joe. Greg was about ready to start rapping to try to fill time until you got back.
Yeah, I was going to do the
What would your rap name be, Greg?
My rap name? Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Nonstop. Joe, do you have anything to add on 7-Eleven? Because my mouth never closes. That's a good one. Joe, you got anything to add here? I'm not sure. I'm assuming you weren't able to hear Trey Kaufman-Renn, so that's okay. I won't take it personally. But anything to add before we move on here? I know we were kind of clumping Clough and TKR together, so wherever you want to take it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add quickly. I thought that they were. It was good to see how efficient they were in their looks. Like, I mean, just dominate the paints, and we talked about that kind of off the jump, and how it paired with Braden, and you get some quick duck-ins, you get super aggressive on the glass, you get some seals down low, like just kind of everything you'd expect from a game like this, especially where Northwestern doesn't have their starting center, right? Ayrton Page not available for this one, so just really good to see what they were able to do, and you kind of hope that's able to go forward. TKR hits a couple floaters, which is big. You can't ask for much more in this game from those two, truthfully. Like, those two do that every game. Purdue's giving themselves a chance to win any game.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that stood out too was he just talked about, they played the short roll a few different ways, and we have counters for everything. So I think the biggest thing in that regard is just taking your time. Don't rush and try to recognize the coverage that's in front of you. But there is that balance, right? You don't want to be too deliberate because then defenses are able to recover. But also finding that balance of understanding, hey, we have counters to anything they throw at us. Let's recognize, read, and react.
Yep. So, yeah, I think that is well said. So, do you guys have anything else on the bigs, or do you want to jump into some of these other players?
Wherever you guys want to go.
Let's do that. Yep. I guess we can just talk about Lawyer. 14 points, 5 of 12 from the field, 2 of 7 from 3, a rebound, 3 assists, a turnover. I'll put CJ in here as well. 5 points on 2 of 8, 1 of 4 from 3, 7 rebounds, 3 of them being offensive, and a turnover. obviously wasn't their night shooting the ball, especially from three as they go combined 3 of 11. But Lawyer did a good job in being able to get some of those pin downs to go, being able to curl, pull up. I thought CJ's defense was pretty good from the start and kind of good, very good throughout the entirety of the game. I don't got much on those two, but just you hope that they each knock down maybe another 3. Other than that, it's solid overall game from those two.
I mean, the 7 rebounds just jumped off the page to me. Like I did not realize until we uploaded the stats here. I knew he was getting on the glass because he gets that offensive rebound, shoots that little 5 or 6 footer, and knew he collected a few more, but I had no idea he'd accumulated 7 up to that point. 2 of those misses were in that stretch where Meyer, Jakari, and CJ were on the court together, and Braden was on the bench, where they absolutely got nothing going 2 possessions in a row, which just led to like a late heave by Cox before the shot clock rang through. But yeah, neither of them really got going, especially from outside. I did think for Fletcher, it was, we talk about sometimes it's points we talk about his 3-point percentage, and maybe there's not much else in the stat line, but did some other things today. I thought he did a good job getting downhill. He drew some contact and got to the foul line, and also scored on some up close ones there too. So when it's not going, there's some games where teams do a really nice job of just limiting Fletch to only being a 3-point shooter. I thought in this game there were opportunities there for him, and the shot wasn't necessarily going from outside, so he was able to kind of switch up gears a little bit and still figure out a way to be productive and get you 14 points.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you talk about the avalanche that hit Northwestern in the first half, Fletcher was a big part of that. He had some big time dagger type shots that are demoralizing. When Fletcher starts heating up like that, it's demoralizing for the other team. He had a baseline running jumper at one point. Obviously, knocked down a couple threes, turn around and let the crowd know it. I always love seeing that side of Fletcher. So, and just that ability to go off the dribble at times and find that aggressiveness and draw a few fouls too. There's a few times where if you're a Northwestern player, you can't be fouling Fletcher when he's driving to the rim like that. Stay straight up, live with the results, but he gets you so off balance that he forces you into those fouls. And so those are big plays for Fletcher to kind of get bailed out of, like when a defender kind of has his number, then he gets him off the dribble, then he gets him to foul. You see the frustration on the defender's face because like he's thinking I should have him, but that's Fletcher using his smarts over maybe having all the tools in the shed, kind of, so to speak. So
yeah, I got nothing to add on to that.
Just making so many
I don't know
points.
No, like when I talk, see, Joe, the way this works, when I talk and then Greg talks, then it goes back to you. So like you've got to answer. No,
it really what it is it's clear that I'm lucky to still be on the show, and you guys have a symmetry. It's like Jordan and Pippen, right? And I'm like Rodman, but I'm the Rodman that just got back from Vegas, and you had to like pull me from Vegas, and now you're like trying to find this chemistry. That's really what this is. Let's not get it twisted. So if there's any kind of chemistry issues you see on the show, it's because Rodman here just got back from Vegas. He's slightly hungover, and he's trying to move the basketball and play the triangle offense.
I opened with my thoughts on those two, so that's why I was just kind of like making sure there was nothing else, and then I was just going to kind of jump to the bench as we do that here. Jacobson, Benner, they play 10 minutes. Meyer plays 13. Jakari plays 15. Jakari, he goes 2 of 2 from 3 with 6 points. Does add in 2 rebounds as well. Meyer has 8 points on 3 of 6 shooting, including 2 of 4 from 3, 2 assists and a turnover in there as well. Benner 0 of 2 from 3 with a rebound. And Jacobson 5 points, 1 of 4 shooting, with the only make he had was probably the toughest one he took. 3-4 from the free throw line, 1 offensive rebounds. Craig, I'll throw it to you and just for the sake of time, kind of grouping them all together. So yeah, whoever you want to talk about, whatever, just go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got to be Jakari because he goes 2 of 2. He knocks down both 3-point attempts that he has out here, does get 2 rebounds as well. And I thought he played relatively good defense when he was out there. But we'd kind of posed the question: is Matt Painter decided that like we're going to shorten up the rotation a little bit, and if Jakari was going to get squeezed, and he got some run in this one, and we've seen Painter before, kind of with this grouping of Meyer and CJ, Jakari, Benner to a lesser degree, but like if they're going, then he's going to stick with them and give them, kind of ride with them a little bit further. And, Jakari I think he hit both of those right away, like pretty quickly after he came into the game, didn't he? Yeah. And so, he gets a little bit more run. And so we kind of go back to like, well, okay, I guess that's like Painter hasn't made that up in his mind that it's necessarily going to go this way and be much heavier CJ minutes, and Jakari maybe gets squeezed a little bit. It's maybe just him kind of playing his hand as it's dealt to him on each individual game. I thought, Jack's stat line looks terrible, but I didn't think he played terrible. I thought he was physical. I thought he played with good energy. He picks up that charge again. He fought for some rebounds. There was a rebound that he was undersized against the guy he was going at and doesn't actually collect the ball, but gets it forced out of bounds off of the guy. He just makes, and he didn't have the opportunity in this game, but we've seen it many times where he's able to be a connecting piece, between Braden or whoever gets him the ball into that next man for a good look as well. So I think he played his role well. He's going to be a little bit of a more of a glue guy, more of a connecting piece guy. If his wrist is injured, based on kind of what we're selling from a treatment standpoint, that may be affecting his shooting a little bit as we go into the Big Ten tournament, or finish to the end of the Big Ten tournament and start of the NCAA tournament. Just have to see how that plays out. But with Jacobson, it was like, again, there were some good moments. There were some moments where he needed to maybe take his time a little bit more and just realize, hey, I'm 7'4". Like, I don't have to rush this shot. He smoked those first two bunnies that he had, but then he has a nice little hook a little bit later on in this one. Also, only one rebound in those minutes. I think that's what kind of concerns you the most. And as we look, at him going forward with the other two bigs, I think that's why it's just going to be hard for him to get more than 10 minutes a game, really, because they have to win. They have to win the battle on the glass for this team to be successful. They're playing in the margins, and that formula means winning on the glass.
Yeah, absolutely. I would just say from my perspective, I'm only going to touch on Jakari and Daniel Jacobson, but the one play that stands out to me with Jakari is on the defensive end. He gets beat off the dribble on the 3-point line, but is able to move laterally and recover and really seal off in the middle of the paint to the point where Northwestern's got a kick, and they need more of that. You're going to get beat sometimes, but how do you recover? And I think Jakari just has that ability, and that's why if he can just find a way to scratch out as many more minutes when you have a guy like that on the court, it's going to cover up some of the defensive woes this team has had throughout the year. He certainly has that ability. And then Daniel Jacobson, I'll basically leave it to him to speak. I know some people enjoyed the TKR thing. So here's 2 minutes and 30 seconds of Daniel Jacobson talking. I mean, the biggest thing I wanted to talk to him was about how he defends the high hedge, because I think at this point, that's probably his number one role on this team, right? Like, he has that, he's got to be able to get out, recover, and try to create problems for guys on the perimeter, and then get back on defense into the post and see if he can disrupt. I know there's some discussion on whether or not he should be playing drop. I didn't ask him that because he's not the coach, but just basically his mindset on how he defends that, and his first game here in Big Ten tournament play. So here's Daniel Jacobson from the United Center locker room. First off, just curious, your perspective when you watch TKR and Oscar kind of do what they were doing in the first half. Felt like that two-man game was really giving them a lot of problems.
Yeah, they were dominant tonight, super physical. I thought they both did a great job crashing the glass offensively and then just dominating the paint. So shout out to them, they did a great job.
For you personally, what is the biggest key for you to make sure you're honoring your responsibilities and your keys on the high hedge?
On the hedge? Well, we mix up what we do every game, so it just kind of depends on who we're playing in the scout. But for Hedges specifically, I just want to make sure he doesn't get outside my shoulders and turn the corner and get downhill. and then just a quick recovery to my guy with like active hands, I would say.
How much in terms of communication when you're trying to recover back and trying to understand from your teammate, like, I can get back, or hey, I need help?
Yeah, it's all communication. That's the most important part. Obviously, if we don't have to switch, we don't want to. But if we do, we have to talk through it and switch.
Yes, sir. I'm just curious from watching you throughout the season, how much of a difficulty, obviously we saw this with Edie, but people, kind of seem to get away with some certain things guarding you. And I'm just curious, like, I'm sure you've had to deal with this your whole life. So what is that like at this level where people kind of are able to kind of get a little more physical with you that maybe would be a foul for other players?
Yeah, I mean, it's just something you got to play through. Can't let it affect your game or just affect your attitude. Always play hard through that. But yeah, I mean, that's just something that, like, just being a young guy or being one of the tallest guys I've always had to deal with. Just not going to get a lot of calls, but that's no problem with it.
Yeah. Your first experience in tournament play here with Purdue, what was that like for you?
It was fun. Glad we got a win. Focused on Nebraska tomorrow. Obviously, wanted a couple more of those to fall for me. But yeah, I thought it was a good team effort.
What's your expectation in terms of, obviously Nebraska's extremely talented, so it's going to be a fight. But what are some of your main expectations coming into that matchup?
Yeah, we had a great game, a good fight against them at their place a few weeks ago. Yeah, I mean, I think defensively is going to be important. And then on the other side, they're really good defensively. So I think we're going to have a great game plan, probably watch a lot of film. So we're really prepared for that.
There's Daniel Jacobson from the United Center locker room. Appreciate him giving us some time here to Boilers in the Stands. And thank you to everyone giving time to us. Hit that like button before you head off. I know there's a lot of games on still going on that people are enjoying. You got UCLA and Rutgers here at the United Center with about 16 minutes to play. Double D Sports with a $5 super chat saying, love you guys. Boiler up. Here we come. 9 more to go. Great coverage. Oscar was great. Joe whispering to me is new. I'm a fan. There it is. ASMR Joe. Everybody's loving it. So there it is. Do you guys have any other players you want to touch on before we close this puppy out and I go find Barb?
Nope.
I think we're good.
We can run through these starts real quick. I don't think there's really much to answer in there, but Tammy Wallen did say that the TV said Braden also set the record for the most assists total in a Big Ten tournament play for a career. So just another notch in his belt, and then everything else is based around your rapper name, Greg. So we've got Midwest Goodbye OG or MGOG from Jason Depew.
Okay, that's good.
We've got B Rags to Riches rapper from Salty B. And I'm just assuming Cruder Schmidt is saying your rapper name would be T-Bell.
Yeah, T-Bell. I love all those suggestions, all very good suggestions. I appreciate the contributions to my upcoming rapping career. I'm excited for it. So one more video to share because this was just funny. You know how when in March Madness they like slap the board and spray the water? We're moving on. Well, here was the most anticlimactic moving on in the Big Ten tournament video of all time. Omer Meyer drawing the short straw of putting the sticker on the board.
A lot of pressure.
It was great. He's just like, all right, I'm out. March Madness.
He's detailed. He wanted it right on those corners, man.
Well, the media people were giving him, hey, don't put it upside down. This, that, and the other. There's the guy that was in charge of the sticker was like missing, and it was like, it was a real problem. And he's just standing there like, oh, why do I got to do this? So it was just funny. Not quite March Madness just yet. Big Ten tournament, as Craig said, business like approach, hard hat, lunch pail. let's get to it. Let's get on a little bit of a momentum here. Jason Depew coming in late here with a $10 super chat as he's been tuning in the whole show. We appreciate you always. Jason saying, thanks for the content. As always, guys, everyone hit the like button. So that wraps things up. Thank you, Jason. Thank you to everyone tuned in. We'll be back tomorrow once again. If you weren't aware, Joe and Craig did a full preview breakdown of every potential matchup Purdue could play. So obviously in that preview is a Nebraska breakdown. So if you're looking for that preview, it's already in our library. So go check that out. Search Boilers in the Stands on our Brags in the Stands YouTube page. We appreciate every single one of you. And we will be back here tomorrow as the Purdue Boilermakers will take on the Nebraska Cornhuskers at the exact same time, 5:30 p.m. Central, Chicago time, 6:30 for those of you in West Lafayette. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we look forward to another fun day of coverage. Stay tuned on Facebook or Twitter or any kind of updates if you want to maybe meet us up before the game. I know all of us are probably going to be up here early for the first set of games. So if you're in the area, make sure you come say hi, and maybe we'll meet you up somewhere in between the two groupings of games. We shall see. So that wraps things up for tonight. Thank you to Joe and Craig, as always, for their coverage. Thank you to everybody tuned in. And we will see you here live from the United Center. And as always, Boiler up.